Friends, I must thank the organizers for inviting me. I'm actually a replacement for another journalist who is busy caught up covering the by-election. And before starting, I must thank Mr. Rahul Sharma for the speech and the brilliant way he entered it. And I have often written about him. That's basically because of one reason. During the Gujarat riot, the government of the day had a problem with the ratio of Hindus being killed in police firing higher than that of Muslims. And this man is responsible for that. He acted with the authority vested with him. He upheld the law. And we are a better country because of people like him. We must be always thankful to him. I'm not used to delivering speeches, and my job is neither to do so. So I'll definitely seek the help of a text which I prepared for this occasion. We have come together here today to remember a person who stood up to forces inimical to the idea of India, which in its essence, a celebration of diversity, and was felled by the very same forces. And Gauri Lankesh is not just one person, she is the latest in that list. Those forces who came for the first person soon after this nation became independent, and they sent assassins in plain clothes. When they came for the first person, he was in plain clothes. He did not cover his face with a helmet. He walked in with a pistol, shot the Mahatma dead, and surrendered. Now they have realized that folly. No, they no more send people in plain clothes and with their heads and faces seen. Now they come on motorbikes. They cover their faces with helmets and they vanish. They never surrender. And I must warn all of you who claim that I am Gauri, we are in the list. The masked men on motorbike, they are on the prowl, and any one of us can be on the list. And if and when they come, we don't have an option, we have nothing else to do. Just fall. And what are these people aiming at? Why do they do it? Are the rationalists, are the people who talk about humanity enemies of this bunch of people? What is their actual aim? What are they looking at creating of an India? What is wrong with the India that we have at present? The basic idea is one single term which has defined this nation, that is diversity. They just cannot stomach the idea of diversity. They want everything to be uniform. They want a uniform civil code. They want a uniform food. They want a uniform culture. They want one religion. And now, in various hues, they impose it on us. And how did they come at this position? I would say, the Indian independence movement was a problem for them. We know that the Sangh Parivar was never part of the independence movement. Why were they not there? When you look at the Indian independence movement, it had the largest possible representation from all sections of people. Not necessarily within or under the Congress flag, but at some point in time, every Indian was part of that movement. And one of the preeminent achievements of Indian independence movement was that it had a large number of women in it as part of the rank and as the file. Some of them were leading from the front. This was actually a paradox compared with the India of that time, of this time also. Now, Indian system is basically a feudal, caste-ridden, patriarchal society which does not recognize anything not Brahminical. But look at the Indian independence movement. This dichotomy, when the families remained patriarchal, the head of the family is always a man. And it is riddled with the casteism, but the Indian independent movement somehow tried to break these barriers, and there was a paradox. And when we achieved freedom, Jawaharlal Nehru, he continued with that kind of a liberal idea of India. And, even when Srimati Gandhi declared emergency in 1975, there was another paradox. That is, she said, we are fighting the rightist forces, not the national. She never resorted to nationalism. She said, we are fighting the rightist forces. She had a very strong, at least for the consumption of people, she made all the right noises. So what happened was that even during emergency, nationalism was not the key word. She talked about, Garibi Hatavo, all kind of positive values which we should actually cherish. We know that that was a paradox, and the idea of emergency was basically evil, and it fell. Indian independence movement was a paradox, but its idea was noble, and it won. So there is this dichotomy exists. This diversity, this celebration of diversity, rather, I would say, is a problem for those forces who killed Gauri Lankesh. And I am pretty sure that as long as we have this diversity as the core value of Indian nation, the same forces will have a problem. And they will come for anyone who think that this diversity should be celebrated. And look at the way, nationalism is a term which is being used to silence all people. Gauri Lankesh is only one of them. We journalists face it every day. And look at the way, how ingeniously, how deceptively nationalism is being used. The words of great minds delivered with a noble intent are taken by the lesser ones and misinterpreted to suit their own less convincing arguments. Rabindranath Tagore, he wrote to his friend, patriotism cannot be our final spiritual shelter. I will not buy glass for the price of diamonds, and I will never allow patriotism to triumph over humanity as long as I live. And look at the way how a national anthem, which Tagore wrote, is being used as a tool for the pseudo-nationalists to discipline people. And the worst of all, yesterday or day before yesterday, the Kerala High Court delivered a judgment which practically banned politics on campus. And to the horror of all right-thinking people, the judge quoted Dr. Ambedkar. Now, what was the background of Dr. Ambedkar talking about keeping away from non-constitutional means? India's independence movement had a history of civil disobedience, non-violent struggle. So when the constitution was formed, Ambedkar was right in reminding people that, look, we have a constitution here, we need to resort to that. And that was the cusp of that period. And now a judge in 2017, sitting in Kerala, using that quote of Ambedkar, bans campus politics. Now look at the way how Tagore's words were misinterpreted. Look at the way how Dr. Ambedkar's words were misinterpreted. This is the way, they tell us very seemingly acceptable words with a kind of malevolence which we fail often to understand and decipher. And they really want this nation's diversity to be killed. I often watch when Parliament joins for the first time, when a Lok Sabha is formed, or when the President delivers his speech in the first session of Parliament every year. Now, if you see the television, you can see the brilliance of India's diversity there. Now, you have an A.K. Antony wearing a dhoti to the right and Chidambaram wearing to the left. And then you have the BJP MP from the northeast with a three-piece suit, and then one from Rajasthan with his colorful turban. This is the diversity that India almost reflects. There are vegetarians, there are non-vegetarians, there are Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Parsis, Sikh. Every kind of human race is represented in Indian Parliament. Now, this is the diversity which we should seek to uphold. And this is the fight actually we have. Why do they want to do that? They do not want this diversity to persist. They want this to be killed and some kind of a uniformity imposed. This is we are fighting against. This was what Gauri Lankesh was fighting against. This is what we need to fight also. And how do we do it? India attained freedom after one of the largest after witnessing one of the largest human tragedies religion has caused in our recent history. That was the partition and the killings. India, in spite of the fact that we had seen religious riots, chose to become a secular nation. And that is not because we did not have Hindutva forces in India demanding that we need to be an equivalent theocratic state. We definitely had forces. But India's independent spirit and secular spirit was so strong that we chose to become a secular nation. And we should actually rely on those same forces. We should enlist everyone in that struggle. It's the vast majority of Hindus sitting in the Constituent Assembly who talked against India choosing a theocratic nation, being a theocratic nation. I think we should go back to them. I would quote Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, a part of it, when he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. There is something, and that was the time when, there were no civil rights for the blacks, and they were at the cusp of getting it. So he was telling his people in the march, but there is something I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let's not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence again and again. We must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. And the most important thing, the marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. This is what I also feel. We cannot walk alone. We feel that the secular forces, the so-called secular forces, we cannot win this war against the religious bigots alone. We need to look at the gray area. We need to look at those people who are willing to join with us. We cannot sharpen the divide. We cannot instead blunt it. And I would end with one more quote from another American, John F. Kennedy. Now, he was speaking to the American people after ordering admission of two perfectly qualified African Americans to the University of Alabama, and there was wide protest. And he said, this nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and the rights of every man is diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. We need to tell everyone that, not only the secularists should realize this. When the rights of one man is threatened, the rights of every man is diminished. This is applicable even to the Sangha Parivar, even to the Islamist. Finally, they will have to pay for that. We need to realize that, and we need to make them realize that. We need to remind the proponents of those forces which failed Gauri Lankesh that we have come to realize that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. This nation was also founded on the principle of democracy and diversity. And most importantly, we need to tell those forces that this nation was not founded in 2014. Thanks.